Is that news? This is
No.
Bloomberg.
Let's find out what's happening outside of handballs. We've got our own Michael Barr.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Tom. Hong Kong's leader says her administration will spare no effort in bringing an end to anti-government protests that have racked the city for more than 5 months. Carrie Lam spoke after spiraling violence that included the shooting by police of an unarmed protester and a man being set on fire. Former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, has a new book out. The Washington Post released a sneak peek which details her allegiance to President Trump and the people in his administration she says were not. Haley says that former Secretary of State Rex Tillerson told her that people would die if Trump was unchecked. Republican Representative Peter King of New York announced his plan to retire from Congress after 14 terms. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg Top.
And Michael Barr, thanks so much. Ground control to Major John, Cape Canaveral this morning. Later in the 9 o'clock hour, another space launch, SpaceX. This is Bloomberg. Good morning.
Rich is just a really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich? No. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business strategically. Yet, the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize-change.
I've got to tell you about our beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. Next, we donned our skates for Bath on Ice. I'm a natural. Didn't have to hold on to anything or anyone. There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
It's another Monday afternoon. Yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick to enjoy a warm Bayesian welcome.
How are you doing? Enjoying the sunshine?
Fly from London Gatwick to Barbados with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £699 per person. Don't miss out. Ends tomorrow. Book at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
It's never nice missing out. But millions are doing just that by having a current account that doesn't pay them any interest on their hard-earned money. TSB is here to help. They offer interest to all their Plus account customers for no monthly fee. So if you're one of the millions of people who are missing out, talk to TSB. Terms and conditions apply.
I'm back. I just set a personal best on my park run. Feels great.
That's lovely, Mike. I think you've earned the right to put all the bins out.
Hey?
With Vitality Life Insurance, you get properly rewarded when you're active. In fact, you could save over £730 every year in discounts and rewards from our partners. Join over 1 million customers. Just search Vitality Life. Vitality. Positively different. Annual savings available with certain plans and are dependent on members' usage of rewards available. Terms and conditions apply.
From Bloomberg Television, here's Anna Edwards.
Adidas, the company reporting earnings that beat estimates. The sportswear maker's sales picked up in the US after months of supply chain issues. Europe also seems more promising as sales returned to growth. Joining us now is Casper Rorsted, the CEO of Adidas. Let me ask you about the North American business then. You do seem to be reporting some momentum, some real momentum coming through in North America. So do you finally put behind you the issues of the supply chain there?
As you saw, we grew double-digit in the U.S. and online in China, and U.S. is indeed accelerating. And that is indicative of the fact that our supply chain issues are coming to the end, and that's why we expect a substantial increase in our growth also in the fourth quarter. So overall, we grew probably at 2.5 times the market rate in the U.S., and we were very happy with the performance, not only in the U.S. in the third quarter, but overall.
Are you still having to fly apparel from Asia into North America, and what kind of impact can we still see from the supply chain issues in this set of numbers?
So in this set of numbers, you can see a slight impact in the gross margin. You can see a very little impact on the growth rate, and in the fourth quarter, as I said, you will not see any growth, impact on the growth rate. On the contrary, what you're going to start seeing in the fourth quarter is the first indications of the Euro 2020, the European Championship in football, that of course we look very much forward to and hope that one of our teams will win.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. It is 8:17 on Wall Street. Futures are lower this morning. Let's go to the First Word breaking news desk for today's morning call. Here's Bill Maloney. Bill, good morning.
And good morning, Karen. U.S. futures remain under pressure since the last time we spoke. Dow futures now down 119 points. S&P's dropped 12 and NASDAQ futures declined by 35. The U.S. bond market is closed. Gold is up 3 points. And Hong Kong fell 2.6% overnight as the violence escalated, while European markets are also under pressure, led by 1% losses in the UK. Back in the U.S., nothing to report on the economic front. And in other news, Tesla's price target was raised to 400 over at Jefferies, and Alibaba's Singles Day exceeded last year's record. In deal news, Novartis buys Aspen's Japanese unit for up to $440 million, and Carbonite to be acquired by OpenText for $23 a share in cash. Wrapping things up, Qualcomm was cut to equal weight at Morgan Stanley. Baidu raised to outperform at Oppenheimer, and Cisco cut to neutral over at Piper. Live from the First Breaking News Desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Karen?
Bill, thank you. And here live breaking news over your Bloomberg. Type squawk on your terminal, SQUAWK, and that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom, John, and Lisa.
Karen, thanks so much. There is nothing like the cardinal rule on Wall Street. Let's put it out on a Friday. And it could be the Friday of Thanksgiving, this or that. Once again, on Friday, we enjoyed the gazillion-page PowerPoint dump by We Company. There it was. It's 6 or 7 p.m. Luke Kawa joins us now in terms of Friday afternoon planning. Luke, I skimmed through the X-page PowerPoint. To be blunt, the bond market didn't like it. The We Company yield out to 13.6%, price now under 80. But within all that is the accounting that is necessary. Are we getting any clarity on some of these unicorns, on Lyft, on Uber, and certainly on a troubled We Company?
I don't think we're getting any or much in the way of positive clarity on the unit economics of a lot of these businesses.
Well said. Unit economics. Well said.
For instance, I think Uber Eats got subtweeted essentially by Grubhub last week, a couple of weeks ago in their. How
does subtweeting fit into unit economics?
Because Grubhub basically said, this business this business doesn't work in the fact that there are a lot of different entities getting into this, operating at a loss in the get-go. You're really just cannibalizing for all of us. And, you know, it's pretty much basically look at Uber Eats, look at DoorDash, look at some of those other ones, just saying like this is an industry that's ripe for either consolidation or very little. And in the case of Matt Levine said it a while ago, if they're unable to raise money, they're going to have to prove the unit economics of this business.
Right.
So that's where we're at for
John,
now.
Extraordinary document. Nobody saw it because it was cocktail hour on a Friday afternoon.
How did you see it?
I saw it and I skimmed most of the pages. And I would just suggest, John, it's the well-intentioned managers trying to bring clarity. And the question is, why wasn't this document the IPO document? That's, you know, the presented document.
Our colleague Cameron Christ has had this argument continually, Luke, that if you sell $1 for 90 cents, you'll get business, you'll get growth, you'll be able to disrupt an industry. Now they need to prove that they can get growth without selling $1 for 90 cents. Do you think they can?
Probably that's for a lot of people making the investment calculus. You know, I find it quite difficult. I think in a lot of these cases, hey, they're operating in places where businesses have been profitable before. So perhaps it's just a matter of gaining sufficient market share, leveraging the pricing power that comes with that, and then it turns positive. But like this, a lot of them are also not essentially operating in businesses that have been historically high margin. So that's what I really don't get about it. That's what seems tough about me to really turn that dial.
You know, we've moved past the all unicorns are bad and fictitious to trying to sort of distill which ones have potential profitability and which ones don't. Where does Uber come in here? Because initially Uber was kind of written off alongside WeWork, and now people are kind of rethinking that.
Hey, the taxi business, you can make money driving people around, a service for a fee, driving a car. That's been proven to be a potentially money-making business. On the other hand, you also have the tech and data that Uber can presumably leverage to gain revenue opportunities outside of the mere kind of fee clip that they'd be able to do from this. So it does seem like there's a business model in there somewhere. I don't know whether it's at the valuation and the timetable that people are putting on potential numbers and the total addressable market, which seems maybe a little optimistic, but beyond that, people can make money doing this.
John, the reason why I bring this up is because a lot of people are trying to figure out what the systemic risk of WeWork is. The idea that SoftBank and all of these venture capital funds have funneled billions and billions of dollars into these funds, propping up valuations. What happens if this team comes out? They're the haves and the have-nots, the ones that can actually raise prices at some point and have a reason to exist, and those that can't. A lot of people saying WeWork. What's the barrier to entry there?
Who do you think has the pricing power right now, then, out of all these big names? It seems to me that Airbnb is actually, among all of these big companies, Luke, actually a pretty decent company.
A pretty decent company that somehow hasn't gotten the same degree of regulatory scrutiny, although, you know, it really has, but it hasn't compared to, say, Uber and Lyft, that's for sure. But yeah, I'm an avid user of Airbnb. The business seems to work. It seems to be having its time, though, in an era, especially when certain tier 1 cities it's a little difficult for housing affordability. That could be a problem for the company going forward.
Would you explain, and this is a guy in the Minnesota Wild, blocked 3 shots in a row on one shift the other day. He's out X number of weeks. Where did it become a requirement that people have to block shots in hockey and be injured and many sitting out for many weeks? They don't do this in English football. They're more sane there.
Oh, cool! I've seen crazy guys at the jumping in front of the wall to block something in English football. I think they got the bravado there too. But hey,
they don't make them like they used to, Luke. Come on,
blocking shots has been there since the beginning of time, and now
they're like goalies.
Yeah. I mean, you have to. Now,
they're all getting hurt. They're all out 2, 3, 4 weeks.
If the shot goes through, it's going to go in. If the goalie can't see it, if you're going to be in the way, you better block it or get out of the way, right? Like there's no two ways about it.
This is a huge, John. These guys are falling like flies. I mean, they get hit in the ankle and they're out. Which
very aggressive. I've seen it.
Yeah.
And then they fight, and then the referee just lets them fight.
They're not fighting like they used to.
They're not.
No, they're not fighting like they.
Why are they fighting less?
They're fighting less because you can't waste a roster spot on a guy who only knows a sport that a part of the sport that isn't very applicable to winning and losing.
No, that's well said. It's gotten that competitive.
Luke Howard, thank you.
Thank Luke Howard.
Just love that we keep finishing with the important stuff.
We did, and hockey is important.
The week begins on Tuesday, if you can't tell. That's when the president addresses the Economic Club of New York.
And the bond market is open.
Here in New York City. And the bond market will reopen tomorrow as well. From New York, this is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Looks like a lower Wall Street open on this Veterans Day with the stock futures all in the red. Dow futures down 114 points. Crude oil is lower as well, lower by 1.3% at $56.50 a barrel. It's a busy week for economic reports. We will not get any on this Veterans Day, but we will get updates later in the week on wholesale and retail prices, retail sales, and industrial production. The stock market has a regular schedule today. The bond market is closed. Tesla's first electric vehicles made in China have rolled off the assembly line at the company's new Shanghai factory. The first Model 3 sedans made at Tesla's first factory outside of the U.S. came in blue and were emblazoned with the brand name in Chinese characters. China's first plant, wholly owned by a foreign company, is a crucial test of CEO Elon Musk's bid to keep Tesla profitable as he bets on Chinese demand for electric cars. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Elite advisory firms rely on BNY Mellon's Pershing to meet the needs of their most complex clients. Karen Novak, Chief Operating Officer at Pershing Advisor Solutions, explains how.
At BNY Mellon's Pershing, we bring customized insights and strategies to help you grow your advisory business and stay on the leading edge. We can support the needs of your most sophisticated clients with a full range of investment and wealth management solutions, from access to private banking to consolidated bank and brokerage custody. Learn why so many of the largest advisory firms turn to us for the financial strength and high-touch service that BNY Mellon's Pershing can provide. Are you well positioned to stand out from your competition?
Learn more at Pershing.com or call 800-445-4467. Brokerage custody provided by Pershing LLC and other services provided by Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC. Both members of FINRA and SIPC. Private banking and bank custody provided by BNY Mellon NA. Member FDIC.
Have you wanted to... It's another Monday afternoon. Yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick. Reach the top of Mount Teede or relax on a sandy beach. Fly from London Gatwick to Tenerife with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £349 per person. Don't miss out. Ends tomorrow. Book at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Which Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
The S in Audi S-Line stands for many things like sporty, stylish, streamlined, and now seductively priced. Like the new Audi A4 S-Line, which you can now have from £359 per month, £2,154 initial rental. Test drive one at your local Audi centre, but you'll have to be swift. The offer ends soon. Search Audi S-Line. Audi, Vorsprung durch Technik. With 48-month contract hire, 10,000 miles per annum, 18s and over, subject to status. Damage charges may apply. No ownership. Ordered by 31st of December 2019 from participating centres. Audi Financial Services. Visit audi.co.uk.
It's one small step for man, one giant shop. Sorry, 2 giant shops a month at 10% off with the new Tesco Club Card Plus. Oh, and double data from Tesco Mobile. All for $7.99 every month.
New Tesco Club Card Plus. Value you can't stop talking about. Subscribe online today. £200 max spend per shop, in-store spend only, club card app required, exclusions apply, double data only on pay monthly, home from home destinations. First payment payable up front, subject to status, see online for details.
No one wants to wait and wait and wait for that perfect phone. Thankfully, the Tesco Mobile Black Friday event has started already. You can find loads of brilliant phone and SIM deals with low monthly prices and big savings, including time-limited weekly deals. Tesco Mobile's best ever Black Friday event is on. Go in-store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Best ever Black Friday based on range of products and length of promotional period. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
From New York City, this is Bloomberg Surveillance for our audience worldwide. We're live on Bloomberg Radio with equity futures down around about 13 points on the S&P 500, negative a little more than 0.4%. Remember, the bond market is closed for Veterans Day. We closed out on Friday with a 10-year Treasury yield of 194. To get to the economic data, your economic indicators are brought to you by Commonwealth Financial Network. For the sixth straight time, J.D. Power ranks Commonwealth #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms. Visit commonwealth.com to learn more. As far as the economic data is concerned, we are light on the data front today. Things pick up on Wednesday, November 13th, when we get CPI data, through to Thursday, when we get PPI data in America, Tom. And in between all of that, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jay Powell, speaking on November 13th, that is this coming Wednesday, 11 a.m. to the Joint Economic Committee of Congress, and the president tomorrow, get this one in your diary, midday, New York time, local time, the president delivering remarks at the Economic Club of New York here in New York City.
Well said about the summary forward, and I don't know where we are coming out of CPI on November 13th, 2 days out. I mean, I'm looking at core CPI year over year, 2.4%. Mr. Evans said he needs it higher. I assume Mr. Powell will say he needs it higher.
How much higher would
and
it
our audience is saying, no, we don't want it higher.
Meanwhile, overnight in China, we got some CPI and PPI data out that was at odds with CPI surging on rising food prices.
Inflationary deflation.
That's right. And then you got PPI declining, really concerning about stagflation or disinflationary trends.
On inflation in America, I'm pleased to say that joining us on the phone, Lindsay Piegza, Stifel chief economist. Lindsay, explore that further for us. Inflation in America at the moment.
Well, I think right now you're seeing two very different inflation stories. When you look at the cost of goods, we're seeing a very low level of inflation, in fact, outright deflationary pressures. Of course, that's a reflection of a global environment, the fact that we import cheap goods from overseas, so essentially we're importing deflationary pressures. But when we look at services costs, that's really where we're seeing those elevated price pressures. Those are much more anchored towards the Fed's 2% objective. But of course, we can't have monetary policy for two separate sections of the economy. And so when taken together, we're still seeing that prices are lagging behind the Fed's 2% objective, which echoes some of the Fed commentary in terms of needing further upward momentum in inflation to really satisfy at least that portion of the Fed's mandate.
Can services overwhelm the decline that we're seeing in the industrial sector and push inflation beyond the disinflationary kind of concerns?
It absolutely could. We haven't seen that over the past several years because the amount of inflation in services has still been relatively benign relative to the very strong disinflationary trends on the goods front. So we absolutely could see that pattern emerge, as you suggest, but we just haven't seen it as of yet.
Lindsay, just in terms of the Federal Reserve and on inflation, there's just a belief that it won't go low enough that the Fed needs to act again, and it won't go high enough that the Fed needs to consider a rate hike. Do you believe that too?
You know, it's interesting because the Fed very clearly wants to be on the sideline at this point. There's a growing number of Fed officials that are pretty comfortable with the fact that 75 basis points was enough action to stabilize the economy. So the bar, the threshold for further Fed action has been risen. Further evidence of more of the same, moderate inflation, moderate growth, won't tip the Fed's hand in either direction. So if we continue to see these same themes of, well, inflation is near 2%, but not quite there, the Fed is unlikely to take further action in the near term.
Oh, it's such a throwback right now, Lindsay. We're thrilled to have you on for this headline coming out. KKR said to make formal approach to Walgreens on a ginormous leveraged buyout. I don't have a real number in front of me, but I got a working statistic of $53 billion plus another $17 billion of debt. Lindsay, all of that is about cheap money. Leveraged buyouts love cheap money. With the yield move that we've had higher, is this the lemmings to the door of the theater, to mix two metaphors? I mean, is this like, let's get it done before rates get much higher?
Oh, I don't know if we can say that. We're still talking about an incredibly accommodative environment. Rates are already extremely low. Then you layer on the fact that we've had 75 basis points of cuts. So this environment is ripe for, as you mentioned, leverage buyouts or businesses and consumers taking advantage of very low credit costs. But I don't know if really the fear is a sense of immediacy because this environment is going to go away. I do think there's still incredible amount of risks to the economy, to the downside, meaning that the Fed could very easily jump back on the rate-cutting train as we look out to the end of the year and into 2020.
And so much of this, folks, goes to how the takeouts happen given this revenue environment. Lisa Bramowitz, Catherine Mann at Citigroup will talk about how we're doing a worldwide roll-up. Well, maybe it's not Walgreens taking out Rite Aid. That was blocked. But here you have private money, KKR, taking out Walgreens, which is not the same, but somewhat the same to affect these transactions.
I was speaking last week with the head of Neuberger Berman's private debt market, and she basically saying she expects an increasing number of these public to private takeouts because there's just so much money in the private sector with so much dry powder. The question that I have, though, is you're getting some serious pushback from debt investors. They don't want to finance the biggest LBO in history at what a lot of people think is the peak of the credit cycle, and you are getting pushback.
What's the yield going to be on that?
Well, it's a good question. Right now, you're seeing, meanwhile, Walgreens shares surging up 8.5% ahead of the open. So there's definitely a good response there. But is it just going to be the bag getting held by the bond investors?
Speaking of bond issuance, aren't we going to get the fourth biggest corporate issue on record this week?
Yes,
from
that's
AbbVie?
correct. Yes,
what is it,
from
28
AbbVie.
billion?
Yeah, yep. And so this is another sort of issuance. We've been waiting for this, though. We've been waiting for this, and now it comes, and people can't get enough of it. And yields actually on investment-grade corporate bonds, spreads, the lowest in more than a year.
Did we say thanks to Lindsay Pieksa, State
Lindsay,
Chief
thank
Economist?
you so much.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Really, really.
Thank you very much.
Tommy. Futures at negative 12, down futures at negative 98. The VIX, 13.30. This is Bloomberg.
Let's find out what's happening in the world. Michael Barr here. Michael.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Jonathan. New York Representative Peter King says he will not seek re-election in 2020. The 14-term Republican congressman says in a Facebook post this morning that the prime reason behind his decision was the commute. At least 20 House Republicans have announced they will not seek re-election. Demonstrators attempted to disrupt commutes inside the major districts of Hong Kong by blocking intersections and setting fires at subway stations today. The protesters were met with riot police using tear gas, and in one incident, an officer shooting an unarmed masked protester. Another man was also set on fire in another part of the city. Hong Kong's chief executive, Carrie Lam.
Once we satisfy the rioters because they have resorted to violence, I can assure you that more violence will follow.
Lam pledged to spare no effort in bringing an end to the anti-government protests. It is Veterans Day, and across America, people who serve the country in uniform are being honored today. In New York, the Veterans Day Parade is celebrating its 100th anniversary. President Trump is in New York City and will speak during the ceremony. Global news, 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Tom.
Michael Barr, thanks so much. Time now for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Report. Here's John Stashower.
Tom, the two New York quarterbacks were born 9 days apart. They're likely going to be compared for years. The Giants could have drafted Sam Darnold, decided instead to take Saquon Barkley, and then Daniel Jones the next year. They left Darnold for the Jets in the Jet-Giant game. Darnold had a big first quarter, ran for a touchdown, then threw for one. The Jets blew that 2-touchdown lead, but they went back ahead, and they beat the Giants 34-27. Jet coach Adam Gase on Darnold.
Yeah, I mean, I'll know more when I go back and look at it, but for the most part, it seemed like he played clean, did some good things, used his legs, threw the ball away. You know, I think he did. I know he wishes he had that flea flicker back. He just missed that thing by a couple inches, but he did a really good job today.
In the loss, Jones threw for 4 touchdowns, 2 to Golden Tate, 2 to rookie Darius Slayton, who was a Giant bright spot with 126 yards. But Jones got sacked 6 times, and Barkley had a nightmare game. 13 carries, only 1 yard. So the Jets are 2-7. The Giants are 2-8. They've lost 6 in a row. Last night, the Vikings beat the Cowboys 28-24. Knicks had that encouraging win Friday in Dallas, but then came home, got crushed by Cleveland 108-87, forcing Knicks president Steve Mills and GM Scott Perry to assess the situation. Here's Mills.
Obviously, Scott and I are not happy with where we are right now. We think the team's not performing to the level that we anticipated or we expected to perform at, and it's something that we think we collectively have to do a better job of delivering the product on the floor that we said we would do at the start of the season.
The Nets off the win Friday in Portland, lost in Phoenix 138-112. Rangers lost to Florida 6-5 in a shootout. Devils a 2-1 win at Vancouver. With the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, I'm John Stashower. Tom?
John, thanks so much. Let me go through equities, bonds, currencies, commodities. I'll start with bonds. It's easy. Cash market closed. Let me frame that. 30-year bond closed Friday, 2.42%. 10-year yield, 1.94%. Equities, negative 12 on futures. VIX up a stick, 1.23, 13.30. Dollar fractionally weaker yen, 108.96. This is Bloomberg.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Startups and research universities like New Jersey Institute of Technology are fueling the innovation economy. And few people are better positioned to see what's on the horizon in New Jersey than physicist and state representative Andrew Zwicker.
How technology is transforming our financial sector is revolutionary, and so much of that is in New Jersey. We are innovators when it comes to agriculture, and there is opportunity now for great transformation in how are we going to grow food in an ever-growing population, and how do we turn urban centers into agricultural centers. Autonomous vehicles is another one where we have some of the world's leading experts, and how this will transform how those who are either elderly or are visually impaired or mobilely impaired can start to use autonomous vehicles to transform their lives and have access to transportation they could have never had before.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu/research.
It's another Monday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick. Experience Mexican culture and relax by the Caribbean Sea. Fly from London Gatwick to Cancun with British Airways from £275 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Ends tomorrow. Book at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Witch Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk. No one wants to wait and wait and wait for that perfect phone. Thankfully, the Tesco Mobile Black Friday event has started already. You can find loads of brilliant phone and SIM deals with low monthly prices and big savings, including time-limited weekly deals. Tesco Mobile's best ever Black Friday event is on. Go in-store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Best ever Black Friday based on range of products and length of promotional period. See tescomobile.com/terms.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour. But we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
Of news and financial information 24 hours a day. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
New York Republican Pete King says it's time to end the weekly commute to Washington and be home with family. He is the latest member of Congress to say he won't seek re-election in 2020. Ahead of hearings in the impeachment inquiry that go public on Wednesday, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley is defending President Trump, telling CBS News she sees no wrongdoing in his dealings with Ukraine.
You're going to impeach a president for asking for a favor that didn't happen and giving money and it wasn't withheld. I don't know what you would impeach him on.
Haley is promoting a new book about her time in the administration. Turkey says it's begun repatriating captured foreign ISIS fighters. Among the first to be sent home is a U.S. national. A Turkish official says an ISIS member from Germany and one from Denmark will also be deported later today. On Wall Street, it's a holiday, but they're still trading. Dow futures down more than 100. I'm Jan Johnson.
Why all the top-tier experts? Because business is not a magic trick.
Give us a sense of the economic backdrop.
Bloomberg Markets.
Which financial records are these?
Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow, and sources tell Bloomberg KKR has formally approached drugstore giant Walgreens Boots Alliance about what could be the biggest ever leveraged buyout. Walgreens is up 6.5% in early trading. OpenText has announced a deal to acquire Carbonite, a provider of data protection services, for about $800 million in cash. U.S. stock index futures, meanwhile, sliding this morning along with European shares as traders await further developments on the trade front with turmoil in Hong Kong added to the risk-off mood. The pound is rallying as Brexit Party leader Nigel Farage said the party won't contest seats that the ruling Conservatives won at the last election. And we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures down 12 points, Dow futures down 108, NASDAQ futures down 32, the DAX in Germany's down 0.33%. U.S. bond market closed today in observance of Veterans Day. NYMEX crude oil down 1.1% or 63 cents at 56.60 a barrel. COMEX gold little change down 90 cents at 14.62 an ounce. The euro 1.1039 against the dollar. British pound 1.2873 and the yen at 108.96. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. It is 8:48 on Wall Street.
The following commentary is from Bloomberg Opinion.
I'm Justin Fox, a columnist for Bloomberg Opinion. The U.S. labor market has just hit another happy landmark. The prime age employment population ratio, that is, the percentage of Americans aged 25 through 54 who have jobs, hit 80.3% in October, equaling its high from the last economic expansion. If you just look at men, though, the employment ratio is still well below where it was in early 2007. The departure of men from the labor force has been much discussed, with a big rise since the early 1990s in the percentage of prime-age men who say they are too ill or disabled to work. That's not what's been happening over the current business cycle, though. The disabled percentage has barely risen since 2007. What's the main driver of the decline in prime-age men's employment ratio since then? Going to school, which seems like a positive development. I'm Justin Fox. For more opinion, please go to Bloomberg.com/opinion or OPIN Go on the Bloomberg terminal.
This has been Bloomberg Opinion.
And Bloomberg Opinion editorials can be heard every weekday at this time, and terminal customers can read more at OPIN Go. S&P futures are down 12 points, Dow futures down 106, NASDAQ futures down 32.
Bloomberg Opinion, informed perspectives, and expert data-driven commentary on breaking news.
Good morning, everyone. Bloomberg Surveillance, our studios in New York, and right now we need to touch upon an event on Ibstock Road, Coventry, CV66JR, England, of a few years ago, because he went to the heart of England in Coventry. Mr. Farage invented and introduced his Brexit party. Were you there, John?
I'm here. I'm here.
Mr. Farage, were you? No, but you were there years ago. Was he? And founded the Brexit Party?
I was still here.
You were still here. Okay, I thought maybe you took the week off to go see.
To go and see
Farage make history at the BG Penny and Company Limited factory.
Nice.
Long ago and far away.
I'll take you on a tour next month.
That's a set, please. That's a setup.
Houston to Coventry is about 60 minutes on the train. We'll get Virgin Railway.
Yeah.
No, about £40-50 return, Tom.
Very good.
Something like that.
We'll do a remote from there.
I'm happy to do
Bring in our guest on BG Penny and Company Limited and Mr. Farage.
That is not what we're doing. We're bringing in Therese Raphael now of Bloomberg Opinion, and we are going to talk about the Brexit Party and Nigel Farage, because today he made an important announcement for the Conservative Party. The good news for the Conservatives, the Brexit Party will not run against Conservative-held seats. The bad news for Conservatives, they will still run against Labour in seats the Conservatives would quite like to win. So, Therese, is this good or bad news? What is it?
Well, I think it's more good than bad for the Conservatives, because Farage a short while ago had issued Boris Johnson with an ultimatum. He said, repudiate the Brexit deal that you struck with Brussels and we will stand down. Refuse to repudiate it and we will stand candidates in 600 constituencies against the Conservative Party. And he has had so much pressure from all quarters, all Conservative Party and Brexit quarters ever since. So it looks like he's blinked and has decided not to field candidate in Conservative Party seats. But, as you said, these are seats that the Conservative Party, which has metamorphosed into a party that now seeks to appeal to working class Brexiters as well as sort of traditional social conservatives, and they want to have these seats. But I think overall why I say it's good news is because for the Conservative Party, at least, is because voters now have a mixed message from the Brexit Party. They're saying, on the one hand, a vote for us is a vote against Brexit in a way, because that's why they're standing down.
What's the Raphael Venn diagram of the Brexit Party overlaid on the Conservative Party? Do they barely overlap, or is there a lot of commonality to the two parties?
Well, I think where they would overlap would be in the real leave voting areas where the Labour vote has become maybe is more in play than it ever has been. And you have to remember, Labour voters are the most tribal of all British voters in some of these Labour heartlands, and as you were speaking of in the Midlands, in the North, in some of these areas, it's said that those votes are now in play, and that's where the Brexit Party and the Conservatives are going to be competing. I don't think it's a lot of areas, but also, and we have to remember, the Conservative Party is going to be losing votes in the Southwest, in the strong Remain voting areas. They're going to lose votes in Scotland to the Scottish National Party. So they need to pick those votes up somewhere, maybe around 60 of those votes. And, they're going to want to try to do that, at least in some of those Midland and Northwest constituencies. So the Brexit Party is not going to make it easier for them there.
I'm trying to understand the market response here. Prime Minister Boris Johnson's chance of winning the election next month increasing significantly, at least by a lot of pollsters and by Nigel Farage's move today. Why is this being treated as such a huge positive for the UK economy right now by sterling traders?
Well, I think you have to go to the announcements of the spending programs that have been dribbling out over the last few days to see why the markets are terrified of a Labour Party victory here. I mean, the Tories have put the Labour spending plans at over $1 trillion. Okay, that's, they haven't quite explained how they've gotten to that, and Labour has denounced that figure. But there's there's no denying that there is a order of magnitude or three difference between the Conservative Party and the Labour Party on spending. So anything that makes this a two-party race and benefits the Conservative Party is going to be looked upon by markets as, a safer bet, especially now that Boris Johnson has a Brexit deal. So the risk of a no-deal Brexit has receded significantly.
Is the idea of another referendum pretty much off the table at this point?
The only way I think we'll get another referendum is if we get a hung parliament or a Labour victory. And, as we're saying, the better the chances of the Conservative Party, I think the lower the chances that we will get to a referendum.
What happens now? I mean, this announcement's been made. It's great. Does the campaigning change a lot tomorrow? I mean, we're all jealous in America, Therese, of how short the campaign is, how compressed it is. Does tonight or tomorrow morning when they're messaging, do they re-message, or is it onward and forward?
I think the Conservative Party message stays exactly the same. It is that Brexit will get done with this deal. It removes a distraction for the Conservatives in the form of Nigel Farage constantly claiming that the deal betrays Brexit. I think we'll hear less of that from Farage, and the Conservative Party will be, full on hammering Labour spending plans. There is a sort of media grid that means that the parties will be focusing on sort of one issue at a time. So we're going to hear a lot about immigration, a lot more about spending, and then we have the manifestos to come. And in Britain, manifestos are all important.
What is a manifesto?
Right.
I'm picturing someone posting something on a big door.
The surveillance manifesto.
So we don't have these in America, but the manifestos are where the party lays out in quite substantial detail, usually with some degree of costing, what it's going to do, and it asks voters or tells voters you can judge us by how much of this legislation we pass. And because the party that wins a majority controls the legislative agenda, the manifesto gives you a pretty clear blueprint of what a party will do in office. Now, the Tory manifesto might not come out until about 2 weeks before the election, but it will get a lot of attention. Yeah. And Labour's manifesto we're expecting next week.
Her new book out later this year, the Raphael Manifesto. Therese, thank you so much.
I love
Greatly
the idea.
Appreciate it.
Big oak doors that are 300 years old, and somebody going up there and just slamming on some parchment with their manifesto.
Lutheran, yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's
our
exactly
manifesto with surveillance is don't talk to us until the fourth cup of coffee.
Amen to that.
It's going to be fun. I mean, we're already planning right now, folks, this important election in the United Kingdom. Of course, all that goes on at 10 p.m. at night, the day of the election. And again, to be honest, we have to be quiet about the election. There's very different rules than here. Very, very different
about
rules.
Talking about polling and such with a certain amount of time. But I imagine that you'll have a lot of fun writing up your own manifestos on the plane ride.
My manifesto as well. So we're starting to plan out what we'll be doing December 12th, and we'll have that coverage for you worldwide as well. In the meantime, it's a Veterans Day with the bond market closed 1.94%. On the 10-year yield futures at -13, Dow futures at -112. Risk-off field here, Hong Kong, really distressing protests, riots, and injury in Hong Kong today. Thanks to Yvonne Mann and all of our team in Hong Kong for their coverage this morning. Again, futures -13. Stay with us. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute.
It's another Monday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick, and relax with 365 beautiful beaches.
So yes, sir, what would you like to have?
Fly from London Gatwick to Antigua with British Airways from £223 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Ends tomorrow. BA.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Witch Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that.
Mind the gap.
We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit wit.co.uk.
Hi, I'm back. I just set a personal best on my park run. Feels great.
That's lovely, Mike. I think you've earned the right to put all the bins out.
Hey?
With Vitality Life Insurance, you get properly rewarded when you're active. In fact, you could save over £730 every year in discounts and rewards from our partners. Join over 1 million customers. Just search Vitality Life. Vitality. Positively different. Annual savings available with certain plans and are dependent on members' usage of rewards available. Terms and conditions apply.
Capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
The Federal Reserve's independence is crucial.
Central banks should be prepared and not presumptuous.
Finance.
In order to grow, you need to innovate.
Global money doesn't like uncertainty.
Investment.
I think the issue in the market is really more about the possibility of a recession in the next couple of years.
I do think we need to get back to where we have always been, the American dream.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Paul Sweeney and Tom Keene, thank you for joining us. Futures negative 13 off a bang-up week last week. SPX near 3,100, 3,078 on the Friday close. Dow 27,521 on futures right now, negative 110, negative 12, negative 110 on futures. Lots to talk about. Company news. Paul Sweeney is the only one on the planet that read the We Company PowerPoint that came out at 7 p.m. Did you see that thing?
Crazy. Yeah.
You gotta love their PR dropping that puppy at 5:30 p.m. on a Friday.
You know, I think the market could have used it several weeks ago, certainly. But looking at those bonds trading, down again,
yeah,
over
13 point whatever. Yeah, I saw
exactly.
they threw an 80 price as well. We'll touch on that and lots to talk about here. Frankly, the media, the streaming wars is in everybody's face. We'll beleaguer Sweeney on that here at some point. So we welcome all of you in Boston. In Washington, 99.1 FM, good morning. In San Francisco, an early good morning. Sirius XM, coast to coast. Sirius XM, channel 119. And I bring this up because it is a national thing. Texas gets the press. And now New York this morning gets the press. There's a gentleman from the 2nd District. He will retire, Peter King, warbling all the usual ideas. The travel has been heavy. I've done that trip 1/100th the time of Congressman King, and it is always a wearing trip. And Anna Egerton joining us now from Bloomberg News in Washington, knower of all things congressional. Anna, I would note a 2016 blowout for Congressman King, taking 60% plus, and then last time around taking 53% plus, and a close election. Is that sort of the same story on all these other 19 retirees? Is that they're looking at the battle to the first Tuesday of November and going, this isn't worth it?
It's a battle about numbers, but it's also a battle about politics these days. There are a lot of Republicans that are looking forward to the next election and questioning whether or not they really want to put up this fight, whether they now want to be on a ballot with President Trump. Now, Peter King has spoken favorably of the president. He was sitting there with him at the fight at Madison Square Garden. But, it's a different Republican Party. And for people who are institutionalists, who have been here for a long time, they're just tired of it.
I guess it's a purple, but does it lead to a purple party? As you count up, and of course, folks, this is a massive punditry, whether it's 538 or the Cook Political Report, which has Congressman King's 2nd District on Long Island, South Shore Long Island, R+3, so it's borderline Republican. But Anna, within all that is the actual count to get to where the Republicans are actually in trouble in the House. Are we at the margin there?
It's going to be hard for Republicans to take back the House. I mean, even with some Democratic vulnerabilities, some moderate Democrats that are going to face a tough reelection campaign. They just lost so many moderates in 2018. They're going to have to pick really good candidates to even be competitive in a lot of those districts. And so it's going to kind of depend on the character of the Republican Party, the next iteration of the Republican Party.
Yeah, so Anna, that's where I wanted to go. You mentioned that Congressman King is an institutionalist. He's been there a long time. Where do you think the Republican Party is going when the Peter Kings of the world bow out?
I mean, that's a great question. And from what we see right now, we are, the Republican Party is very securely the party of Trump. And you see that not just from Congress, but also from people like Nikki Haley, who came out today, criticizing other former White House aides who had, worked to undermine the president and her telling of it. And you see that, someone who wants to have a future as a Republican possible presidential candidate, she's putting herself firmly with President Trump, and other people who want to be successful with today's, I guess we could call them conservatives, are sticking very closely with the president. And then we're going to see that from Congress as well, especially in the House, where you have more narrowly drawn districts that are very, very purely red, very purely pro-Trump.
So, and obviously impeachment gaining momentum. Kind of what's on the schedule for this week? What are you looking at this week from Congress?
This is going to be a huge week. This is the week that we have our first public hearings on Wednesday. We have 2 former State Department officials, and then on Wednesday with the former ambassador from Ukraine. So this is the moment that the impeachment inquiry bursts into public view. And it's going to be very high risk for the president, not only in beating back impeachment, but also to make sure that nothing too damaging comes out as he seeks re-election next year.
We all have our collective memories, either watching tape or actually living of what a quote-unquote hearing is. Anna, do you have any idea what an impeachment hearing is in 2019?
That is also an excellent question. And if a previous hearing, Robert Mueller and other people that we've kind of dragged before Congress so far, I mean, it's been an opportunity for members of these committees to kind of shout at the witness. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But they've structured it slightly differently. So the first 45 minutes will be questioning from a committee staff. So they definitely have an eye on the optics of this and want to make sure that they're presenting a solid case about facts to the American people, not just giving their members an opportunity to grandstand.
Are the hearings a report of the private hearings, private questioning, the private meetings before?
Yes, Democrats have been very careful about this. So we've already seen the transcripts of testimony from the 3 people who will testify this week. So we have a pretty good idea of what they're going to say. What I'll be looking for is the holes that Republicans try to poke in their testimony. And so far, it looks like their strategy is going to be to undermine the kind of source of this information, to point out that these people weren't having direct conversations with the president himself.
And is the sense of timing still ideally before Christmas to try to wrap this thing up?
Yeah, and one thing that kind of gives us that indication is that Democrats have pulled back from some of their legal battles. They withdrew a subpoena for one of John Bolton's former aides, and they seem to be wanting to push this forward with the information they have, not wanting to fight it out in the courts to get more people confirming the same thing, even if they have more first-hand information.
Do they want to speak to Ambassador Bolton?
They would love to speak to Ambassador Bolton, but it's becoming clear that they're not willing to go through the court battles in order to make that happen. And one thing we're waiting on is the resolution of a case with Don McGahn, the former White House counsel, pre-impeachment inquiry. But that case could determine whether or not these other aides will be obligated to appear.
Spectacular summary, and thank you. So she can count all the purple states. She can do that. Anna Edgerton helping us this morning. We need to look at the markets, the challenge out there. Futures at -12 with our market report. Here is Karen Moscow.
All right, Tom, thank you. Watching shares of Carbonite this morning. They're up 24.5% in early trading after OpenText announced a deal to acquire the company for about $800 million in cash. Also watching Walgreens Boots Alliance. Those shares are up 5.8% after Bloomberg learned that KKR has formally approached the drugstore Walgreens about a deal to take the company private. Shares of NextCure moving lower, down at 53.5% after downbeat data on the company's new cancer treatment. And we're also watching SunPower. Those shares up 8.25% after word that the company will spin off the majority of its global manufacturing operations into a separate company that'll be partly owned by a Chinese firm. Tom and Paul.
Karen, thank you so much. Paul Sweeney and Tom Keene, thank you for being with us. And Paul, let's get right to it right now. The survey was done nationwide. Michael Barr has 7 streaming services in his house. 7. He's paying 142% of what he paid 6 years ago for cable TV right now? How are we doing in the streaming wars?
They're going to really, really, really heat up tomorrow. Disney launches Disney Plus, and so it'll be the first time for people to get a chance to see what they can get from our good friends at Disney. So it's Frozen and more Frozen, and all the Star Wars, and it'll be really interesting to see.
I got an email. I get Apple Plus for free for like the next 12 years because we bought 12 things or whatever.
Right. Yeah, so Apple Plus is in there, and they've got some original programming. And so the simple answer is all the major media companies either have announced their streaming services or will be very soon. They have to be in there. And so it's going to be a shakeout because we're going to have arguably a dozen streaming services to choose from. Then the question is, how many do consumers really want?
Forget about the managing and the message, which they're all going to do. Things are great, 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 great. And when do we know who's buying what? Like 3 months out, a year out?
The first question on every earnings conference call and every investor conference will be, what are your subscriber numbers for your streaming service? And that's going to be it. And that's going to be the report card. It's not so much how much cash flow does ESPN have or what's the hit movie. The number one question for certainly Disney and these other big companies will be, how many subs do you have on your streaming service?
How many are you going to have?
I have no idea. I'm not even sure what I have today.
You're getting what? The Duke channel?
I'll get the Duke
streaming?
Yeah, exactly. And I'll be set. But it'll be interesting to see. But Disney, you look at that programming, it's hard to see how they can't be successful.
Help me with this. I've been watching a lot of hockey. I'm enjoying watching Montreal, full disclosure, this year, and the Bruins are just exquisite. They play the same single commercial every time. What are they thinking? I mean, it's like brand destruction for the commercial they're playing.
Yep, it's somebody's not doing
who's driving that bus?
Well, I think if you're a regional sports network that's doing hockey, perhaps you're just trying to fill spots and sell spots.
It's so blatantly obvious how desperate they are.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that business model is really about the subscriber fees that are being paid. So that's kind of the real profits.
Fascinating.
Yep.
We'll do much more on this. It affects all of our lives. Futures at -13, Dow futures at -118. This is Bloomberg.
Let's get national headlines right now with Michael Barr. Michael.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you, Tom. After 14 terms, Republican Representative Peter King of New York announced his retirement from Congress this morning. King is a former chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee. Hong Kong saw one of its most violent days since protests began in June, with clashes involving police and protesters leaving 2 men clinging to life. One man was shot by police and the other was doused with petrol and lit on fire. Public hearings in the impeachment investigations into President Trump will begin on Wednesday. The New York Times is reporting a lawyer for one of Rudy Giuliani's indicted associates told them the president's lawyer directed him to deliver an ultimatum to the Ukrainian government that the U.S. would freeze aid if the country did not investigate Joe Biden's family. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts, more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Tom.
Which name on the wall do you go to on Veterans Day?
Bailey Barr.
I go to Thomas Keane, born one day after me. This is Bloomberg. Good morning.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong.
Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
Why do hedge? It's another Monday afternoon. Yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick. Reach the top of Mount Teede or relax on a sandy beach. Fly from London Gatwick to Tenerife with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £349 per person. Don't miss out. Ends tomorrow. Book at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Which Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
It's hard to enjoy your daily yoga routine when your mind is on your next VAT return and how to avoid the usual mistakes. But with QuickBooks, the new VAT Smart Scan technology does the work for you. As the deadline approaches, it checks for duplicates, looks for anomalies, and reviews VAT codes. So your biggest struggle is touching your forehead with your ankle.
Search for QuickBooks, perfect for making tax digital. QuickBooks, backing you.
This is a live message from the Survivalist Network. There are reports of an impending zombie apocalypse reaching London. But don't panic. Our intel shows that for £199 a month with 0% APR representative, you can locally access the Toyota Hilux Invincible, the only vehicle with the build strength to withstand savage hordes of the undead. Once inside your Toyota Hilux, stay on this frequency for updates. You'll be fine.
0% APR representative on new sales of Hilux Invincible over 42 months. £199 per month. Customer deposit of £9,701 when financed through Access Toyota by 16th of December 2019. £12,525 optional final payment. Subject to status to over 18s. Indemnities may be required. Conditions apply. Toyota Financial Services.
Here is Brad Stone.
Facebook employees repeatedly chafed at what they viewed as anti-competitive or unethical practices by the company, internal chats show. But those concerns voiced in 2012 and 13 were overruled by senior managers, including Chief Executive Mark Zuckerberg, who argued that the survival of the social network was more important. To discuss, we're joined by Wired Editor-in-Chief Nick Thompson from Wired 25, the magazine's conference here in San Francisco. Nick, so much to discuss, and you've written some great features about Facebook over the last few years. Let's actually start with political advertising and the company's position that private companies should not be policing public speech. Do you agree with the position, and do you think it will sustain?
There's so many layers to that question, and my opinions are a little complicated on that. So I think in general, political advertising on social platforms is a net good for society, and that it creates the opportunity for upstart campaigns to challenge incumbents. And so I think it's actually, you should start with the principle that it's a good idea. So I like that their political advertising exists. I think Facebook's policy, which is that politicians can lie in their advertisements, but citizens can't lie in their organic content or be fact-checked, is very weird.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow, and the Bloomberg Futures Report is brought to you by IBKR and CME Group. The new Micro E-mini futures contracts are available at IBKR at the lowest commissions. Learn more at ibkr.com/CME Mini. U.S. stock index futures are sliding this morning along with European shares as traders await further developments on the trade front, while turmoil in Hong Kong added to the risk-off mood. The pound is rallying as the Brexit party decided not to contest conservative efforts to leave the European Union. And we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures, you're down about 13 points. Dow futures down 113. NASDAQ futures down 34. The DAX in Germany's down 0.3%. U.S. bond market is closed today in observance of the Veterans Day holiday. NYMEX crude oil down 1.5% or 86 cents at $56.39 a barrel. COMEX gold is down $1.10. That's less than a tenth of a percent at $14.61.80 an ounce. The euro 1.1036 against the dollar, and the British pound at 1.2873. The yen at 108.98. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
Karen, thank you so much. It is a Veterans Day. It is 101 years on. Paul, I don't know about when you were in school, but World War I was one of the great forgotten wars.
Yes.
When we were kids. We really didn't study it. I became more acquainted with it with the work of John Keegan of England, where World War I was tangible and profound for the British. And I would say more so in America. It's become, a dawning awareness of the Great War. Back to November 11 of 1918.
Yeah, absolutely. And I started my, kind of reading of World War I with a book, 1918. I can't remember the author, but it was about the peace process at Paris and how what was done at the peace process in Paris in 1918 laid the groundwork for the Second World War, and how those two were so closely connected. So, but you're right. Most people, I think, at least in my generation, was front and center was World War II.
And it is Veterans Day for so many. As I mentioned with Michael Barr earlier, there is a Vietnam wall. I've always been upset. It's a conflict. It's a conflict in Vietnam, which drives me nuts. Yes. It was not a conflict. It was a war. As usual, in the world of investment, with the center on the lower Manhattan landscape is the New York Stock Exchange, where there will be a moment of silence. Let us listen in now on this Veterans Day. The New York Stock Exchange, on a Veterans Day of one of the many silences they have had, and it is a understanding of the sacrifice made for all the advantages we have today. Paul?
Very good, Tom. So taking a look at the economy, I think there's a real push-pull, Tom, out there for certainly economists, I think market participants, about kind of the weakening of the manufacturing sector, yet the resilience of the consumer. Let's get the latest from our good friend Stephen Rasciuto, Mizuho Securities. He's a chief U.S. economist there. So, Stephen, we haven't chatted in a while. Just wanted to get your thoughts. We've received a lot of data points over the last several weeks and months. How are you kind of viewing, as we head into 2020, the U.S. economy?
No, you're 100% right about the alternating dynamic between what's going on in the manufacturing, what's going on in the consumer side of the economy. And that's led to a bipolar type view as to what's going on in the world. It's binary. Either the economy is great or the economy is bad. The reality is the economy has been muddling through for years, and that's exactly what's going to happen again as we go into 2020. This economy is going to produce growth of about 2 to 2.25% at best. We may get a quarter or so in 2022, 2021, where the economy dips a little bit below 2%. It doesn't matter. The average growth is going to be somewhere between 2 and 2.25%. And that's, in my estimate, right about trend.
On inflation, with numbers out in 2 days, you write nicely, Steve, as others have, about a return of an impulse of disinflation. Do you just assume goods prices and price change rolls over?
Well, I think with the fact that the year-over-year growth rates that are taking place in terms of the tariff implications are due to start to unwind, the answer is yes. With the continued deceleration that's taking place in Europe, in particular the surprisingly negative industrial production numbers that are getting spread throughout Europe, the weakening of some of the Asian economies, in particular China, you've got that sense that we're going to see those flexible components of the Atlanta Fed CPI measure start to move down again fairly sharply. And as that moves down, it can, over time, pull down the more sticky components of inflation. And that then becomes the real deflationary impulse.
You're a great student of this. How does a central bank reflate?
Well, I hate to say it, the balance sheet has proven to be the most effective tool that the Federal Reserve has. The Federal Reserve cut interest rates 3 times, and we're expected to cut it 4 times, and it has 0 effect on the currency. As soon as the Federal Reserve announces when we got to 99.5 on DXY, the Bloomberg measure for the currency, we wind up having the Fed do an emergency announcement of they're going to buy bills, and they're going to buy a substantial pool of bills. It's not QE, but it is QE. The net result is the balance sheet is expanding, and guess what happens? The dollar drops dramatically. Then when the Fed comes out and says, you know what, but we're really not going to go any much further than this, we're not going to push too much further, boom, the dollar starts to go back up again. The balance sheet is driving the currency. The currency is important to immunizing us from global deflation risks. And the Federal Reserve, unfortunately, I don't think gets the story yet. They're not going to get it until the inflation numbers start to roll over. And I think the inflation news we get out this week will start the rollover effect, and we'll start to see lower inflation numbers coming out. That'll start flattening the yield curve again after we've steepened it out to about 26 basis points, excuse me, between 2 and 10s. And I think that starts the whole process all over again.
Steve Rizzuto, Mizzou, thank you so much. Too short a visit today with Mr. Rizzuto. There's always lots to talk about with him. And I know there, Paul, he talks about 2 point this to 2 point whatever percent. And Steve Stanley last week, I'll go back to it, was really remarkably optimistic about the next 2 or 3 quarters.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Nicely above that.
Yeah, it's in that 2 to 2.25 is that as Mr. Rizzuto pointed out, is kind of trend line. So it seems like the days of maybe 3% plus.
Oh yeah,
GDP growth.
Nobody's talking about that.
Yeah, so it is kind of this lower for longer. You have to adjust your return expectations over the next 5+ years versus kind of what we've had over the last 10 coming out of the financial crisis.
I go back to my fancy math this morning, Paul. When you combine the 2 Google classes, 17% of the SPX is in 5 stocks.
Yep, absolutely. And that's all you had to own over the last 10 years.
1% of the stocks make up 17%. That's just breathtaking. I got to figure out a chart on that. It's profound and important. This is Bloomberg Worldwide.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Walgreens is a takeover target. Bloomberg reports KKR has made a formal approach to Walgreens Boots Alliance and wants to take the drugstore giant private. If a deal is done, it could set a leveraged buyout record. Carbonite is getting new owners. The data protection provider has agreed to be acquired by Open Text Corporation, a Canadian company that describes itself as an internet, extranet, and corporate portal solutions provider. Open Text is paying $23 a share. Elon Musk's electric car company achieved a milestone. Tesla took the wraps off its first Chinese-made vehicles today. And steel makers are testing the waters by raising prices in the U.S. Price hikes by Nucor, ArcelorMittal, U.S. Steel, and others will determine whether customers can take on higher prices after heavy discounting in the past. Wall Street will observe 2 minutes of silence to honor veterans ahead of what could be a slow Veterans Day session. Futures are lower. Jeff Bellinger, Bloomberg Radio.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com. It's another Monday afternoon. Yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and explore tropical rainforests. Fly from London Gatwick to Costa Rica with British Airways from £218 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Ends tomorrow. Book at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Witch Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
O Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Deny thy father and come to the shops with me. We can get 10% off 2 big shops a month with the new Tesco Club Card Plus. Oh, and 10% off your favourite Tesco brands, including F&F in-store every day. All for $7.99 a month.
New Tesco Club Card Plus. Value you can't stop talking about. Subscribe online today. £200 max spend per shop. In-store spend only. Club Card app required. Exclusions apply. See online for details.
Hi, this is Brian Weber, host of NFL First and Goal every Sunday, kicking off at 1 Eastern only on TuneIn Premium. Be sure to listen this Sunday for the ultimate football fan experience, featuring 7 hours of commercial-free coverage of every scoring play around the NFL.
Hey, can't watch the big NBA game because your life's just too busy? I've got some news for you. TuneIn Premium is the answer to all your problems. Hear every home and away game live or on demand everywhere you go. Just search NBA to listen.
Casting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
And good morning, I'm Karen Moscow along with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney. And the opening bell is brought to you by SEI. Asset managers don't get results that are off the charts when their solutions are off the shelf. Learn how SEI's operating platform can turn infrastructure into a competitive advantage at SEIC.com/IMS. The